More mindless bullshit from CNN. Once again, I was going to be making another video, but I got to fucking comment on this. We're going to blast through it as fast as I feel like it. I'm just going to correct on the fly. Let's go.
They are known as assault-style weapons.
No. That right there is a fully automatic rifle, or maybe he has burst fire. But it seems like he's more just controlling it. That is an assault rifle. That is an actual thing. That is military grade, or that is of the military level,
And have been used in some of the country's deadliest shootings.
Those assault rifles have not. What people call assault style guns. Yeah.
From Uvalde, Tulsa, and El Paso to Parkland, San Bernardino, and Sandy Hook, the high-powered assault rifle has been...
No. Again, those were just rifles. They were not assault rifles in those.
the weapon of choice for many of the killers.
Line is hot.
The Los Angeles Police Department demonstrates an AR-style semi-automatic rifle for us on the department's gun.
AR-style semi-automatic. He's accurate that time. It is an AR, I guess you could say AR-style semi-automatic rifle.
Gun range.
You have a 16-inch to 20-inch barrel. You have a stock that is shouldered. You're going to be accurate at farther distances as opposed to a pistol.
Not to mention, like some other weapons, it can fire a bullet with enough power to pierce soft body armor, something Sergeant James Zaborovan knows firsthand.
Because it's a rifle. It's a rifle round. Rifle rounds typically stop, or typically pierce light body armor. Body armor meant to just stop pistol rounds. Pistol rounds don't carry as much piercing power, if you want to say it like that, as rifle rounds. It's a rifle, not a pistol. So yeah.
Jesus. It's definitely an automatic weapon.
He took a...
They say it's definitely an automatic weapon. That was very interesting footage, by the way. If you ever look it up. It was something about a bank robbery where a dude had like... He's about to say it.
It's definitely an automatic weapon.
He says automatic weapon.
He took assault weapons fire during the...
He took assault weapons fire. No. What people try and say are assault weapons are not what that is. He said it's automatic weapon.
Oh, Jesus. It's definitely an automatic weapon.
It's definitely an automatic weapon, meaning an assault rifle. Alright, potentially. An assault rifle is an automatic weapon. All assault rifles are automatic weapons. Not all automatic weapons are assault rifles.
He took assault weapons fire...
He took assault weapons fire. No. Assault weapons are typically semi-automatic firearms that only shoot one round per pull of the trigger. That is shooting a bunch while holding the trigger. Again, assault rifle, fully automatic, not assault weapon.
Fire during the now infamous 1997 North Hollywood shootout,
Where
two bank robbers wearing body armor fired on police for nearly an hour, injuring 8 people and 12 officers, including Sergeant Zaborovan.
You're being hit with pieces of the vehicles we were hiding behind, asphalt, radiator fluid. Felt like we were being stung by bees.
That shooting changed policy, prompting...
I wonder what got him talking about that specifically. Maybe he just brought up that they also covered it, and maybe that's why they chose him. I hope he wasn't knowingly making the connection to the AR-15.
The LAPD and other departments to upgrade their own weaponry to counter the increasingly powerful guns used by assailants. That firepower from weapons is studied inside a ballistics lab at Wayne State University, where researchers simulate a bullet's impact on the human body.
It's a block of 20% gelatin, and it's meant to represent the human tissues, so soft tissues.
Watch as Cynthia Burr's team fires a handgun round at 1,000 feet per second into the gelatin block.
For this particular round, you'll see the bullet come in on this side. You see this temporary cavity here happening. So that expansion is what happens in the body, and then it collapses down. So that's where your damage comes in.
Now watch as the team fires a round from an assault rifle.
We see a lot more.
Who knows if it was actually an assault rifle, though, because it could be in semi-automatic mode. Although I highly doubt they got an actual assault rifle, because 1, that shit's expensive. 2, that shit has a lot of fucking red tape. They probably used a assault weapon or just an AR-15 or, insert semi-automatic rifle in here. Semi-automatic being a fucking hunting rifle.
Disruption. This round actually breaks apart. It doesn't exit, so it's about 3,000 feet per second, and all of that energy goes into the soft tissue. We have a piece of plastic here to reflect to do the videos, and it actually lifted the plastic up off the table with the energy.
An aftermath photo of the handgun round shows a relatively straight line through the tissue, exiting the other side. But not so with the round from an AR-15.
It basically goes into the
Yeah, see, now he says it's an AR-15, which means he was fucking lying before when he said an assault rifle,
body and creates an explosion inside the body.
whether he knew it or not.
Trauma surgeons say the wound from an assault rifle can be
Again, he says assault rifle. Yes, that is technically true in this case because assault rifle, an assault weapon, or just regular rifle can create the same wound if they're the same caliber, the same firearm, other than the fact that one can go fully automatic.
catastrophic.
And the worst part is in a child, all the vital organs are that much closer together. So each of those bullets causes, irreversible damage.
Like in everyone, it causes irreversible damage. I don't get why they keep saying, like, oh, it's irreversible damage. You're getting fucking shot with a bullet. You're getting fucking shot. Of course there's going to be some irreversible damage. Cut your fucking hand. You're going to have some irreversible damage probably, alright? You're going to have some form of scarring going on.
In Uvalde, Texas, families were asked for DNA swabs to help the authorities identify their children.
As a mom, it really affects me, right? Because I cannot imagine having a child endure this.
Yeah, no one wants to imagine a child enduring that. That's why we want it to stop. Like, everyone agrees that this shit should stop. The only people who don't are the crazy motherfuckers that want it to keep happening. That tend to be the people who want to be the people to keep it happening. Some people just argue for stupid shit that sounds like it would make everyone safer when it wouldn't. And other people want to argue, I'd say, different ideas that could actually make people safer. But some people have concerns about those ideas. But good thing there's other ways too. But no one ever talks about them.
And with high-capacity magazines, suspect...
Okay, he's saying high-capacity magazines. I bet you fucking money it's a standard capacity magazine. One that you normally would just get with the weapon.
can shoot for much longer.
Now, the discussion about high-capacity magazines largely centers on reducing the amount of time that a suspect can fire without having to reload.
Yeah, an action that would take click, done. Because that's a huge opportunity. Now, granted, that's for someone moderately capable. The fucking idiots shooting up schools are not usually moderately capable, from what I've seen.
As a former FBI agent, we were trained to quickly get your weapon reloaded and back up on target. But for a suspect, for example, who isn't trained, you can see using this training weapon, that is a process. It involves removing the empty magazine, obtaining a fresh round of ammunition, loading it into the weapon.
Oh my God.
Magazine. You can see using this training weapon, that is a process. It involves removing
the magazine.
The empty magazine, obtaining
a fresh magazine?
Fresh round of ammunition.
A fresh round of ammunition. You have one bullet in that magazine.
Loading it into the weapon, charging the weapon, getting it back up on target. Those are all precious seconds where
Does this thing... Okay, I'm not pulling out a fucking gun for this. We're just going to show it with this fucking practice demonstration thing. Alright? Fuck it, this is going to be hard. Okay. So this is a training device that has a training device inside of it. Nothing here is an actual firearm. See this little thing right here? All it takes is to just press this button. Grab a box. Fuck it, well imagine it's this. You press the button. You grab the box out of your pocket. And you go, ha. And then You press this button, and then you're back. It's not fucking hard. It's very easy to use. That's why people are recommended this thing for home defense. And by this thing, I actually mean an actual AR-15, because this is not an actual AR-15. It cannot fire anything. It is fake. This does nothing at all. But it's so fucking stupid. People often try and say that, like, oh, it's this horrible thing that's super easy for them to use and they can just do all this destruction all at once. And then they're like, oh, but if we make them, you know, if we make them, like, reload a little bit more often, then, like, yeah, that's a perfect solution. Let's strip away everyone's rights so that, you know, there's a couple more seconds every once in a while. Or, like, there's a couple more instances of a couple more seconds. It's fucking stupid.
Victims can be fleeing, the gun can jam, or the suspect could be engaged by law enforcement or bystanders.
Yes.
Knowing the damage that sustained.
Thank you for saying that the suspect can be engaged with bystanders.
Those are all precious seconds where victims can be fleeing, the gun can jam, or the suspect could be engaged by law enforcement or bystanders.
I will argue, though, that reloading is probably not when a gun is going to jam. It's probably going to be more like in the, I forget what place it was. I think it was at a bowling alley, where the dude basically fires like 1 or 2 rounds, and then it stops, and everyone's like, ah, and they panic, and a dude notices it, and he's like fucking with it, and he's like, ah, shit. And so he's like, has to take out the magazine. He's like racking the slide, or not the slide, fuck, charging the firearm, trying to get the jam undone. And I think someone ends up like stopping him. But the reloading process is usually not when the gun is going to jam. So please don't say that shit. It won't matter if he has a 20 or 30 or a 10 or a 50 round magazine if the gun jams. It's going to be like the same process, same time.
Knowing the damage that sustained firepower can do, researchers hope their critical findings lead to awareness.
Regardless of where one comes down on the gun control debate, it's indisputable that the assault weapon causes significant damage inside the body.
It's the same
Definitely.
fucker. He says, the assault weapon. It's a fucking rifle, dude. It's a hunting rifle.
But this is the reality. This is what's happening.
Now, Jake, although the Justice Department says that handguns have been used in most mass shootings, it's important to note that the deadliest mass shooters have opted for this AR-15 style weapon, and you can see why.
Because it's easy to use. That's why people are recommended it for home defense.
That ballistic demonstration there in our story shows you the disastrous impact that this weapon can have on the human body. Jake, this weapon that was designed originally for the use by soldiers on the battlefield is now causing unspeakable carnage.
Just like fucking every goddamn firearm ever. And if it wasn't, it was inspired by one that was.
Here at home. Jake.
Josh Campbell, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Let's bring in CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, to get the other end of this coverage. Sanjay, today a pediatrician on the Hill described witnessing what he calls the carnage in my hometown of Uvalde during the hearing. Take a listen.
What I did find was something no prayer will ever relieve. 2 children whose bodies had been pulverized by bullets fired at them, decapitated, whose flesh had been ripped apart, that the only clue as their identities was a blood-splattered cartoon clothes still clinging to them, clinging for life and finding none.
Explain. Why are bullets from rifles such as an AR-15 or an AR-15 style?
Thank you. Bullets from rifles, such as the AR-15. That was the first piece of nonpartisan information in here, probably.
Style weapon, so much more destructive, such as an AR-15 or an AR-15 style weapon, so much more destructive to the human body than others.
Because it's a smaller round and has less inertia, and so it tumbles and breaks apart. That is why. Because it does what it was meant to do, to stop whoever it is pointed at. The only moral implications of it is who's holding the firearm. Is it a cop? Is it a civilian? Is it someone who should have the gun turned on them?
That's hard to hear, Jake, first of all, but it's all about the energy of the round, you know, and what's interesting is that it's not even necessarily about the size of the round, size of the bullet. Some people think it's a bigger bullet. Not necessarily. It can be smaller bullets. It's about the velocity. It's velocity times the mass of the bullet, but it's just going so much faster coming out of one of these AR-15 type rifles that overall the amount of energy that is then transferred into the body is much, much higher. The process that Josh was talking about is something.
I'm pretty sure if it's a bigger bullet, though, and it's going at the same speed, it's just going to basically punch a hole through them. It's not going to shatter and break apart. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong.
Known as cavitation. It literally causes cavities within the body. Whereas a handgun, for example, much less energy, will go straight through a linear line, a bullet-sized line through that with the rifle because of that energy.
It causes not as permanent cavities, but it does cause cavities too.
It creates that cavity instead.
You have witnessed injuries like these firsthand when you were in Iraq covering the war there. Tell us what you saw.
Yeah, and you know, when I was in Iraq, you may remember, Jake, that was during the time that there was a ban on these types of weapons. So we weren't seeing a lot of these types of injuries here in the United States. So for the first...
Sorry, what? I'm going to leave that for another video for some other day.
First time for me was really on the battlefields, and it's tough to describe even. I mean, you know, limbs really kind of blown off. People who came in initially into these Devil Docks camps, the medical camps where I was...
limbs blown off from something... I feel like you have to get multiple rounds to basically saw off someone's limb. Otherwise, their limb being blown off would probably be from like an explosive.
Reporting, a lot of times you couldn't tell initially was it a firearm or was it an IED or something. That's how significant the injuries were. I ended up operating on somebody, Jake, who had been shot, and it went through the Kevlar of his helmet and landed through the skull into the brain. Just to give you an idea, again, of the energy of one of these bullets. That is the big difference.
You talk about, quote...
Yeah, if American troops didn't have firearms that could puncture the helmets of any enemies, what would America do? Simple. They would make something that could puncture the helmets of enemies.
An Emmett Till moment in your essay.
It's an inevitability. And civilians are going to get their hands on those. Because civilians have the right to keep and bear arms, and the duty to, when all other means have proven fruitless, to overthrow a tyrannical government. And you can't do that if your bullets don't pierce their armor.
Today on CNN.com, for folks who don't know, Emmett Till, if they remember, that he was the black teen that was violently murdered in Mississippi in 1955. When he allegedly whistled at a white woman, although that's supposedly, it's actually not true. He didn't do that. His mom, Till's mom, famously insisted on an open casket funeral for him to, quote, let the world see what I've seen. And those photos they were published in a magazine. What are you hearing in the medical community about AR-15s and the desire to show the American people what they do, so the news media and the government is no longer sanitizing this as these massacres happen?
This is a big point of discussion within the people that I've been talking to, the medical community, and there is no consensus on this. There are people who believe those types of images, as with Emmett Till, might make a huge difference, and there's others who think maybe not. I think where there is consensus is it has to be the family, fundamentally, that's you know, making this decision. I mean, Emmett Till's mom in that case, it's tough, Jake. I mean, you heard that pediatrician describe some of what they saw in that classroom. I mean, if you listen to his words very carefully, it is horrific to think about. To add the imagery to that would be a lot for people to absorb. I mean, even for medical people. But I think, again, the consensus is that it has to be a family's very personal decision.
Since when can medical people not witness grotesque images?
And you note that you think that we in the United States should be treating gun violence as a public health emergency. Explain.
That was the fucking, what should I say, propaganda. That was the line of thinking. That was so that they could be allowed to study firearm statistics And they were specifically not allowed to use that information to then ban and prohibit firearms or certain aspects of firearms. But obviously the reason they wanted to study it was that so they would have data to be like, well, look, the data says that they're dangerous.
Well, I mean, look, if you look overall at what constitutes a public health emergency, a sudden incidence of increase in violence, injuries, and death, we are certainly seeing that. Over my career,
I think the only sudden increase has been 2020. That's the only recent sudden increase that I know of.
as a trauma neurosurgeon, the numbers have gone up significantly. But if you look at the United States, for example, compared to other countries in the world, many people, they know this data. But it's, I mean,
this is what's fucking stupid. They're like, compare the United States to any country in the world. Or did he say any?
United States, for example, compared to other countries in the world.
Compared to other countries. And then they pull up some places like France or Australia where you just can't have fucking firearms. It's super fucking hard to get a firearm. U.S. ranks first amongst large, high-income countries. Yeah, among large, high-income countries, too. They always do that. They don't go, U.S. ranks first among all countries, because there's a whole bunch of countries that could be large but might not be considered high-income, where gun crime is fucking ridiculously through the roof and way higher than in the U.S. And it's firearm homicide by country, age-adjusted rates. But it's not just by country, because as it says, and as I just said, U.S. ranks first among large, high income. It's that high income that separates it from all the countries that tend to have higher gun crime. And if you can't fucking get a gun, then how the fuck is a criminal supposed to get a gun and then use it to commit crime? I mean, they still do, clearly, but it's not as easy for them. But the people in those countries are a lot less defended, or a lot less able to defend themselves because they don't have firearms. What about, like, stabbings and shit like that? Is the U.S. also, like, crazy higher in that? Or is it just the fact that they don't have guns, so criminals use other shit like bats and knives? I think the U.K. just fucking tried to update the regulation on zombie knives to close a loophole that was definitely not left in there, so that they could then say that there's a loophole later on.
they know this data, but it's not even close, right? U.S. ranks first among large high-income countries, 13 times greater than France, 23 times greater than Australia. But for children now under the age of 19...
he does the stat thingy. Children under the age of 19, which technically the stat that's often used is under the age of 20. So it's 18 and 19-year-olds.
This is the leading cause of death.
Yes, the leading cause of death because of 18 and 19-year-olds being included. If you exclude them, no longer the leading cause of death. Why could that be? Maybe a bunch of young adult late teenagers are fucking going around shooting up people, getting into a bunch of crime with illegally obtained firearms. And that's why they include 18 and 19-year-olds. I made a whole fucking video on this stuff. Check it out right there. It was one of my earlier ones. And it breaks down why he just included 18-year-olds in his words, but the stats include 19-year-olds as well. When you finish this video, go check it out. We're about to wrap up here.
I mean, it's hard to believe that. In part, it's because automotive accidents have come down.
Yeah, see? He already lied. Also, they exclude another group. It's not even ages 0 to 19 like I might have been implying. It's 1 to 19. They took away 0 to 1-year-olds because babies die of a whole bunch of different reasons, and a lot of them. And so if they exclude that, then they don't have to involve that in children death, which is actually going to be the higher cause of death. And then if they include 18 and 19-year-olds, they get a little boost. I forget when they started doing it. But yeah, motor vehicle crashes have gone down. Motor vehicles have gotten, safer. Firearm-related injuries. Oh, they started going up. Also, that's just injuries, not even deaths. What?
I mean, now, under the age, believe that, in part, this is the leading cause of death. I mean, it's hard to believe that. In part, it's
and then they
because
show firearm-related
accidents
injury
have come down to some degree over the years, But
I don't believe
gun
that.
violence, gun-related injuries have gone up significantly, and that's part of the problem. If you look at the CDC's website,
1 year ago. So in 2022, end of 2022 maybe. Yeah, they fucking went up when you locked everyone inside and isolated them. The social species that they are, you isolated them.
there is a dashboard for COVID, understandably. There is now a dashboard for monkeypox.
The CDC website, they did some shit. I don't think I've covered that yet.
But there's still not a dashboard for gun violence and gun-related deaths.
And talk to their HTML people. But they do have stats. The CDC has stats on firearms. And they used to have not just amount of people who died, maybe also how they died, but they used to also have a stat for amount of people whose lives were potentially saved. They used to have a stat for defensive uses of firearms, which is harder to keep track of, but they had an estimate that even the lowest estimate of defensive uses of firearms far, far, far exceeded the highest possible, like, misleading estimates of criminal uses of firearms.
It's still very hard to collect this data, as I found.
Oh, but then they took it down because an activist emailed them, and I'll probably make a video on that later. But you can look it up. There's some coverage of it.
Writing the article.
Not from CNN, obviously.
News reports, media reports, things like that, local reports. People cobble together to create this sort of data. We're not treating it like the public health emergency that it clearly is. Leading cause of death for kids right now, Jake, is this.
No, it's
An
not.
absolute disgrace. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Why gun owners say they love the AR-15 style rifles?
Anna Thomason learned how to shoot an AR-15 style rifle back in 2015.
This is going to have to be another video. God damn it, I hate it when it doesn't fucking let me back up. Son of a bitch. But anyway, if you enjoyed, please like the video, comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and peace.